Some NBA teams are set to dominate for the next 10 years. And some are completely screwed. Like no picks, no young stars, and no direction. So I ranked every single team's future from S tier to F tier. And I promise you, at least 5 of these are gonna piss you off. Yep, that's right. Welcome to Sideline and Baseline. That baseline is important because we're not just a football channel. We are a football and a basketball channel. Make sure to stay tuned to the end of the video because at the end, I picked the team with the best future, the S+ tier, and the team with the worst future, the F- tier. So let's break down today's tiers. S tier. The best of the best. These are the teams with the most generational bright futures in the league. They've got strong draft capital with flexibility, a legit franchise superstar of future, multiple high-level young players. They aren't just good now, they'll be good for the next 5 to 10 years. A tier. These are the teams reserved with a very bright, a really bright future. No question. They've got a clear star or young core, good supporting pieces, and a path to contention. They might not be as stacked or flexible as last year, but they're right there. With the right moves, these teams could easily jump into that top tier. B tier. This is where things start to get a little tricky. These teams are in a decent spot, but they're either missing a true superstar or the roster just to have that high of a ceiling. They're not bad, but they're not scaring anyone long term. They're more like solid playoff team, not future contender. C tier. These are the most unpredictable teams in the league. They're not in a terrible spot, but they're also not in a great one either. These teams usually have some real talent or young pieces, maybe even a solid draft capital, but no clear direction or identity yet. They're kind of in between everything, depending on what happens next, a big trade, a big breakout player, a top draft pick. These teams usually jump up a tier or completely fall off. D tier. Now we're getting to real problems. These teams have serious roster flaws, weak young cores, or bad contracts holding them back. There's no clear path forward right now. They need a rebuild, a big trade, or something drastic to change the direction. F tier. This is as bad as it gets. These teams have no real young core, no control of their picks, and no clear future. Everything's working against them. Unless something crazy happens, these teams are heading straight into long-term mediocrity. Or worse. Now, before we get into the rankings, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the bell to be notified every time we post a video. And let's rank every NBA team's future. The Hawks. The Hawks go on to the B tier for me. After trading Trae Young, this team put it together in the second half of the season, going 20-6 since the All-Star break. This young core of Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, and Onyeka Okongwu, with the addition of an all-star level leap from Nickeil Alexander-Walker, there's something to build around for the future. Next year's draft, they'll most likely have a top 10 pick, as they're in control of the highest of the Bucks/Pelicans pick. Besides an unprotected first they own next year to San Antonio, the Hawks have control of all their picks. This is a sleeper Giannis team next year, and I can definitely see them trading for him. The Celtics. I'm going to put the Celtics into the A tier. There's certainly an argument to put this team that has shared with Tatum and Brown being there for at least the next 5 years. They've recently won a title. Though they lost key guys like Drew, KP, Al from that core, they found a lot of new guys to step up and replace them. Wash, Kada, Sharman, all guys who have stepped in and taken a step. They have one of the best coaches in the league in Joe Mazzulla, a great GM at Brad Stevens. Boston has all their first in 2026, 2027, 2030, 2031, 2032. With a 2028 San Antonio swap, it's basically unprotected. The Nets certainly have an interesting roster. For that, I'm gonna put this team in B tier. This is a weird roster, a weird team with no one you would call the guy for sure. I don't think MPJ is a future, despite him balling out. I don't think he matches the timeline of this young core. I think they will try and flip him this offseason for more assets. The position pick kind of lottery, where they can find that guy for the future. However, the year after that, they don't control their first-round pick. So whatever happens this offseason, they have to try and win games because the Rockets have their pick next year. However, after that, they are in control of their first-round picks, plus additional picks from the trades, which is why I put this team in League 2. The Hornets. The Hornets since January 1st have had a record of 33-16, which is a rate of one of the best teams in the league. And at 32 games that they've had their starting five, they've had a record of 27-5. Some leapo stuff. They've had a stretch where they've won 6 straight games by 15 points, which was the longest since the 2017-18 Warriors, the Prime Warriors, Clay, Draymond, KD, Steph. Yes, those Warriors teams. This team can shoot and score, and they can finally place hard defense and rebound well. They're going into the A tier. Despite bowing out of playing, you've got some playoff experience. You know, you played in the playoff environment. Can't wait to see what this team does next year. This core five of Lamelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Musa, Khan, and Bridges are all pretty young, with Bridges being the oldest at 28. Credits Charles Lee, who came in, but finally got these boys playing real basketball. You have all their picks in the future, and most importantly, Charlotte basketball and their fans finally have something to look forward to. The Bulls, I'm deciding between D or F. They're going into the D tier for me. At least they have some pieces and they have all their picks. However, the Bulls since 2021 have been in a cycle of need. They refuse to embrace a much-needed rebuild. They sold low on their agent vets, and they sold them way too late. And they couldn't even get a first-round pick back for them. DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, Kobe White, Alex Caruso, none of those guys, none of those names I've just listed, they couldn't get a single first-round pick back for them in the trade. They finally fired the 2 guys that have been behind these terrible roster decisions that they've been making. As will the Bulls finally make the decision to rebuild this offseason? Only one way to find out, but the only reason this team is in the F tier is because of the fact that they could pick high next year's draft and have something with Marquez Buzelis. The Cavs, I like this Cavs team. They're going into the A tier for me. I really believe in this current core of D. Mitch, Mobley, and Allen, with some really good role players around them. They can contend for the title for years to come. They just cannot fuck this up and make some panic trade if they're going out before the conference finals again. You just traded for James Harden, signaling that you're willing to go all in. You're a second increment team with the highest payroll in the league, and they will have the second highest again next year. You don't have full control of their first until 2030, so this core is pretty much locked in together for years to come. The Mavs, man, the Mavs definitely would have been left here if the league didn't give them the number one picking the most retarded decision of all time. This team strictly goes into the B tier because of Cooper Flag. Coop alone puts his team into the B tier because look around him. Look at the roster around him. It's an aging veteran roster with no young pieces. They could find themselves contending again next year with a healthy Kyrie and the vets that they have on this roster. Hopefully, they're able to draft a point guard in the draft. They've really got lucked out by the league because this team definitely would have been in the F tier, for sure. The Nuggets go into the A tier. Oops. Primarily carried by Jokic, also with the fact that the core that they have around him is locked in for the future. Aaron Gordon has been such a great player ever since joining the Nuggets. Jamal Murray is having a bounce-back All-NBA type season. They've paid Christian Braun. They've traded MPJ to give them more financial flexibility, which I assume will be used to give Peyton Watson an extension. This team is locked in with the roster they have. Jokic is a player that doesn't really rely on athleticism, so I expect him to age well to his 30s. As long as his core is together, they will be contenders. The Pistons are going into the A tier. This is a team that deserves real respect. They've completely turned around, as this was once a team that lost 30 games in a row. And they've overachieved these past 2 seasons. First as a playoff team last year that made real noise against the Knicks. Then this season achieving the 1 seed. with no expectation of it. Kay Cunningham is a franchise guy. Jalen Jordan is just 22 and has made a huge leap that will probably result in him making an All-NBA team. Azar Thompson is 23 and one of the best defenders in the league. Ron Holland is 20, a solid role player. This is a young team that's built on toughness and physicality. The reason that they're not an S tier for me is simple. I still want to see absolute top-end playoff soon of this group, as I don't know how far they can go with an offense that can't shoot well. But the foundation is strong, and the fact that they control all their picks for the future. The Warriors, this might be shocking to some. I'm putting this team into F tier. Steve Kerr's contract is up, and he gently might leave Golden State after the season. This roster is just Steph, Draymond, who's old and has regressed severely offensively, Jimmy, who's towards ACL and who might not be the same after, and just everybody else. This is the second oldest roster in the league. They don't control all their picks, besides a protected pick in 2030 owed to the Wizards, which definitely won't convey. Me putting them in the F tier is really about what the scene looks like after Steph is gone. And they don't have anything after Steph. This is one of the worst features in the league once Steph is gone. The Rockets. Despite how this season has gone for the Rockets, this is a team with a bright future, and I'm gonna put them into the A tier. The KD trade hasn't worked out their way, and that's okay because you really got the entire roster and your key young core together. They have Amen, Sengun, they have Reed, Shepard, Tari, and Jabari Smith Jr. as key young players on this team. They own all their picks, plus the Nets first next year. That could be really good. The Pacers. I like the future of this Pacers team, and honestly, they're a sleeper S tier team for me, but for now, I'm gonna put them into the A tier. I believe that Tyrese will make a full recovery from this torn Achilles. I like this team with a top 4 pick being added, if they can get that in the lottery. Despite the Pacers being really bad this past season, they've had guys who have taken a nice step. Statistically, Jarvis Walker, who didn't play these last 2 years, has found a role for himself in the rotation. They went from having a big man rotation of Miles Turner, Thomas Bryant, Tony Bradley, through Vitsa Zubac, Jay Huff, and Micah Potter. A huge upgrade from the previous year. I like the future of the Pacers teams a lot. The Clippers. This is another team that I would have put into the F tier, labeling them as a worst feature in the league, especially at their 21 start, and them being the oldest roster in the league. However, due to the moves that they made at the deadline, getting 2 young pieces in Benedict After and Darius Garland, the only young pieces they have, I'm going to put them in the D tier. Plus the potential of getting a pick 5 to 9. At least there's something there for the future. But another thing what most people don't realize is that they're creating real financial flexibility. 2 years from now, they are going to have real financial flexibility, and the Clippers are a team that can get free agents. The biggest problem is they don't own the picks until 2030, and what does a Kawhi aspiration scandal look like? Lakers. This Lakers team got lucked out by Nico Harrison being ultimate dumbass because they're going into E tier alone, strictly because of Luka and Reeves. Besides that, this Lakers roster is very weak. The 2 first-round picks that they've made recently outside the lottery have been complete misses, and they were nice role players that you could have had for cheap. This is a pivotal offseason for the Lakers. They are likely to move off LeBron. They have money to spend. They need to retool this roster around the new generation superstar you have and surround him with the pieces he needs for success. The Grizzlies. This seems like the John Morant era. Whatever era they have with him is officially over, and he will be shipped off this summer for sure. I'm going to put this team into C tier. They're the first team in the C tier because they have some pieces, and I love what they got back in the Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bain trade. They own all their picks, and they're in control of 5 first-round picks from other teams, including an unprotected 2031 Phoenix pick that is very valuable. The pieces are totally there on this roster, as one thing Memphis has done well is draft the developed talent, especially talent that's also outside the lottery. Santi Zama, Zach Edey, if he can stay healthy. I know he wasn't outside the lottery. Jalen Wells, Cedric Coward, Gigi Jackson, Cam Spencer, and Scottie Pippen Jr. All these are nice young guys that they have, but who's your number one? Who's the guy that you're going to build around for the future? They need to find that out. The Heat are going into C tier. The entire Heat team just consists of very good, not elite players. Like no one on this team you would deem as a number one option on a championship team. The Heat always find gems in the draft, yet they lack a true superstar. This team has been stuck in NBA hell past couple seasons. Too good to get a highlight hit, too bad to be legit playoff contenders. It's impressive looking back how Jimmy and Eric Spoelstra dragged this average Heat roster to the finals. I don't know what they do to make this roster better. Is this a Giannis thing? Maybe. Do they have even attractive pieces to send back in return? Definitely not. The Bucks. They have one of the dullest futures in the league. They are going into the F tier. This roster sign of Giannis is very, very bad. And I expect Giannis, whatever his drama is going on with him in Milwaukee, I expect that to be resolved, and I expect him to finally be traded this offseason. And at this stage, what do you get back for him? What will a team who wants Giannis be willing to give up in return? He's 31 years old, very injury prone, as well as the fact that his game revolves heavily around his athleticism. I don't think he ages well deep into his career. Besides the fact that they could pick Kyle Lowry this year because of the Pelicans' incompetence, this team doesn't have a future for us until 2031. They have no young pieces besides Ryan Rollins. The Dame Wade stretch to sign Miles Turner was a really bad move. Nothing to look forward to for this Bucks team. Nothing. They're an F tier for me. Big contender for an F- tier. Spoilers. Wolves are going into the A tier. Minnesota is too high for me because Anthony Edwards is only 24, and that alone matters a ton, as he's one of the 10 best players in our league, who has gotten better every single season. Jane McDaniels is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, who took a step offensively, especially as a three-point shooter. This is another team that's limited on the moves that they can make financially. They seem like they want to trade for Giannis, as they made some pieces to give them that type of financial flexibility. However, I just don't see it. I don't like the pieces that they have for the Giannis trade. And even if those pieces are enough, they would basically have to gut the entire roster. And he doesn't fit well onto this team. The Pelicans, for me, this is another team that goes into the F tier. Sure, it's a little bit harsh for them, but I'm just completely lost with the direction. They've made a terrible decision in having Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars run this team. In June, 2 days before Tyus Halliburton tore his Achilles, they traded the Pacers 2026 unprotected back to the Pacers for a Pacers first-round pick in that year's draft. Then you use that pick to trade it plus an unprotected first the next year. Yes, unprotected, not a single protection for Derek Queen. Then you come out and say you don't expect the team to make the playoffs. This roster has a ton of misfits. You missed out on 2 potential top 5 picks of this upcoming draft. No spacing, no shooting on this team. The DeJounte Murray trade was bad for them. You got nothing in return for Brandon Ingram and Jose Alvarado. However, the good news is, besides the unprotected first year, after that you still are in control of your future first. For a team that's bad, they're also expensive and project to be expensive if they bring everyone back. Pick a direction. Sell Zion at this point, whatever you have, whatever you could get out of him. Sell DeJounte Murray, sell high. You can get a great package for Trey Murphy. Sell Herb Jones, who was very valuable 2 years ago. This is a team that don't have confidence in the organization with the move they've made in the past 2 good seasons. The Knicks. They're going into B tier for me. The This is another team that is stuck where they are, and they will have limited ceiling fruit in these next couple of years with the way the roster is constructed. They decided to go all in and kill bridges by trading 6 first-round picks, which in hindsight was a terrible move that limited their flexibility for a guy who's a great role player at best. They don't have too much financial flexibility as they have the second highest payroll in the league at $207 million. That is right now projected to be 2 of 5 next year, which will be 5th. Despite the depth that they have being better than last year, it's certainly not outstanding. They also have no assets that they can use to upgrade the roster, no good young guys, and they especially don't have control of their picks. They don't control their first until 2030. It's literally a championship or bust for this team, this year or next year. The Thunder are easily going into the S tier. Easily. It's between them and, spoiler, the Spurs, who have the best future in the league. Their core is absolutely absurd. Shea, Chet, the 2 Jalen Williams, AJ Mitchell, Isaiah Joe, Dort, Caruso, Wallace, Isaiah Hartenstein, Aaron Wiggins, Jared McCain. Those are 12 guys I just listed. This Thunder team can go 12 deep. Plus, I'd even mention 2 guys who I expect to be a part of the rotation in the future in Nikola Topic and Thomas Sorber. They've already run the title last season and very well could go back-to-back. The only thing that's stopping this Thunder team is the southern apron, as if they bring all their guys back after this season, they're projected to have a payroll of $250 million, which is by far number 1 in the league. The year after that, the massive new SGA extension is going to kick in. If there is a team, however, that can replenish the talent that they will lose, it's the Thunder. Sam Presti has run this team. They still have control for their first, plus a war chest of firsts from other teams, and guys that are ready to step up to replace the talent they lose. I can see a scenario where Caruso, Dort, and Hartenstein aren't on the roster next season. Hartenstein has a player option for $28.5 million. I do expect the Thunder to let him go and have Thomas Hubert to be his replacement. They're going to have 2 firsts, which I expect to be at the back end of the lottery. I trust Sam Presti to continue that out to an already amazing roster. Easy ass tier. The Magic. I'm struggling to decide where to put this team, especially off the basis of this past season, a very disappointing team, and they're stuck with the current roster. After going all in on Desmond Bane trade, I'm going to put them in B tier. Desmond Bane trade, which they absolutely overpaid for, they're going to be a second apron team next year, and they have the 3rd highest payroll in the league with $222 million. This is a roster that's talented. You have Paolo, Franz, Suggs, Anthony Black. All those names I've just listed were drafted in the lottery. Tristan da Silva, Bane, and Wendell Carter Jr. Despite the Bane trade, this team just lacks offensive firepower. They desperately need shooting, and I believe they need a coach who can unlock this team offensively while keeping in the defensive first mindset. It will 100% move off of Jamal Mosley this offseason. 100%. The Sixers. Sixers, for me, they're between B or C. I'm going to put them in the B tier. They aren't a team you think of having a super bright future. They at least have something with the VJ Maxey backcourt, plus the fact that they pretty much are in control of most of the first in the future. A pretty bad contracts of Embiid and George can have you make an argument to put them over. However, I have ultimately settled to put them here. Despite that, I wouldn't argue if you put them lower. The Suns, another difficult team for me to place on this tier, but I've ultimately settled for the C tier. This is another team, if you go back to the start of the season, I would have put this team straight into the F tier. This team doesn't have control of the first until 2032. With the way it was looking after last season, missing the playoffs, not even being able to make the play-in, the vibes being super low, firing their coach, trading Keedy to where now they're one of the biggest surprises this season. I did not expect this team to be in the playoffs at all. They have players that can ball too, and keep them around the playoff mix. However, with no control of their picks until 2032, they are limited with the roster moves what they can make, and this is their ceiling. A playoff team that gets bounced in the source corner. I'm putting the Blazers into B2. Portland is one of the more fun future teams because the young player volume is real. This is for sure an interesting team. They have a bunch of young guys. No one has really put it together despite Denny, who had a breakout year of this season and made the All-Star team. Donovan Clingan is 22, one of the best rebounders in the league. Scoot, despite not putting it together, is still 22. Shane Trevor's also 22 as well. Tamani Kamara is a fantastic defender and has become a great three-point shooter. They've made the playoffs, had a successful season. This is the roster with depth and youth, and they're in a very good spot draft pick-wise, as they're in control of their first and have a future first on the bump. Only concern with the team is offensively, as besides Denny, no one on his team can create their own shot. The Kings are going into the FTF. With the exception of 2 years that they've been good, this team has constantly been West bottom feeders. I have no idea what this team is doing and what their direction is. It's basically Bulls West with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, and other aging veterans with little value, and they also have no good young players. This is the fourth oldest roster in the league that is very bad and are currently projected at the 7-5 payroll next year. Again, with an aging bad roster. The only saving grace is the fact that they could have a really high picking lottery this offseason. When Russell Westbrook is your best player in 2026, you have massive problems. This is just a horribly ran franchise, and this is another team that has no direction for the future. The Spurs are going into S. This is an easy S tier. We touched on them earlier. Victor Wembanyama, who is a future face of the league, best player in the world, and you have a great roster surrounding Victor. Role players such as Devin Vassell, Julian Champagny, Keldon Johnson, Luke Cornett, and Harrison Barnes. A mix of young talented players that are good, such as Dylan Harper, Carter Bryan, and Stephon Gasol. A great number 2 to 1B with De'Aaron Fox. The Spurs have drafted well, traded well, and made good solid signings for free agency. They own all their first in the future, and they have picks to use from other teams. Toronto and B tier. This makes sense because this is not a bad future at all, but they do not scream true contender yet. You have Cole Geisel, Scotty, Brandon Ingram, who was a guy that they needed to trade for last season. He was a scorer that they needed to produce offense in the half court. RJ Barrett, Carl Murray Boyles, who shine as rookie, Jamal Shead, and Jacoby Walter, 2 good guards who are coming off the bench. The thing that worries me about Toronto, why I didn't put them higher, is their suitors stuck with this core, as this is an expensive team that has 2 bad contracts, and you don't want that in a second Hebron era. What a terrible contract in Jacob Poeltl and Emmanuel Quickley. Also, despite me liking the trade of Brandon Ingram, can you go far with him in the playoffs as their number 1 option? There's a big question I have, which is why I ultimately settled for the B tier. Although you could argue for the A, I wouldn't mind it. Jazz. Don't be fooled by the Jazz record this season. Yes, this was a bad team that was obviously tanking. However, this is the last season I expect them to tank, even if they don't luck out in draft this offseason. If you look up and down this roster, there are a lot of promising pieces who have shined this season. I'm going to put this team into the A tier. Keontae George. Though he's one of the worst defenders in the league, he's took a real step offensively, averaging 24 points this year, and most importantly, improved his efficiency with 45 and 36% splits. Lowry had a career year in 42 games, averaging 27 points, and looked really dominant early on before slowing down and being shut down so that the Jazz contained. I like the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, adding size to roster that has it, and gives an option to trade Walker Kessler if they don't pay him. If they do pay him and they do keep him around, now you have 3 guys who are 6'10 plus. two 7-footers. You can have Laurie at the 3, Jared at the 4, and Kessler at the 5. The bench is deep with Isaiah Collier, not a reigning point guard who averaged 7 assists last year coming off the bench. Bryce Sensawa is a great 6-man who took another step as a scorer this past season. Kyle Filipowski is a solid piece off the bench. The Jazz team will put the finishing touches to the rebuild this offseason, as they're pretty much in control of other bigs and have some other bigs to use as assets. This is a team we'll look out for next year. Sleeper playoff team, and I definitely expect them to be competing in the play-in. Will Hardy is a great coach. Don't be fooled by the record. I believe that he will lead the Jazz to be playing contenders at the minimum next season. And finally, the Wizards. This is another team where you shouldn't be fooled by the record this past season. I'm putting them into the A tier. On paper, I love the job that the GM, Will Dawkins, has done, especially since he took over a roster that was in a disaster state a couple years ago. The Trae Young and AD trades are both low-risk, high-reward moves. Both vets can bring in experience on a talented roster that's surrounding them. Alexar, Bilal Coulibaly, Will Riley, who looked like a steal in the draft, and so really nice potential down the stretch. Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, who's already shown flashes of being a lead shooter, and a steal in Julian Reese, who I believe can be a full-time player for the Wizards and can be in the rotation. They control all their firsts. If they get a high pick in the lottery, they can finally get their alpha that would lead the Wizards team in the future. Alright, now, if I had to pick a team who I believe has the best future in the league, and we'll go into the S+ tier, it's Oklahoma City Thunder. They've already won a championship, could go back-to-back. Yes, this team gets expensive quickly. However, Sam Presti has shown why he's the best GM in the league and easily can retool the roster on the core 3 if they need to. The Spurs are definitely a close second, and honestly, I expect these two to compete in the conference finals for years to come. Now, the team that goes into my F- tier and that has the worst future in the league is the Milwaukee Bucks. Doc Rivers recently stepped down as head coach. The Giannis situation is a disaster, and they cannot rebuild without getting their own picks back. They have no young pieces, no picks, and this is a roster with no talent. They are, to me, the worst future in the league. And yeah, that's my full ranking of every NBA team's future from S tier to F tier. There are definitely going to be some teams you disagree with. So let me know, what team do you think they got completely wrong? And which team do you think actually has the best future in the league? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. And I'll catch you in the next one.